Jesus Christ sat with his disciples on the Mount of Olives, warning them about the signs of the last days. He lifted his hand and spoke with urgency, telling them that love would grow cold as lawlessness increased. Proud Pharisees walked through the marketplace in fine robes, while the people looked on with fear and resentment. In the busy streets, men and women argued fiercely, pushing one another as kindness disappeared. Inside a small clay house, a father shouted in anger, a mother wept, and the children trembled in fear. A young man betrayed his friend for a handful of coins, shock and sorrow filling the narrow alley. Roman soldiers dragged a believer through the streets while the fearful crowd watched in silence. A mother turned away from her weeping daughter, rejecting her as love grew cold in the village. In the marketplace, greedy men exchanged coins and cheated scales, filling the air with dishonesty. Peter looked upon the city with anguish as people turned against each other, and the sky grew dark. Men and women shouted angrily in the synagogue, scrolls scattered as division filled the sacred place. John walked through the streets with sorrow, seeing neighbors grow cold and beggars ignored. An old beggar stretched out his hand for help, but the people passed by with hard expressions. At the family table, a father ate alone, while the mother turned away, and the children bowed their heads in silence. Paul wrote urgently on a scroll, warning that in the last days people would love only themselves. Young men laughed and mocked an older man, showing no respect as love faded away. In the marketplace, people fought for food, pushing others aside in selfish desperation. A Roman soldier demanded heavy taxes from a poor widow who wept in grief and injustice. Matthew pointed to the scrolls and warned about false prophets, while the crowd looked confused. A false prophet in fine robes raised his hands dramatically, deceiving many with his lies. Friends argued fiercely in the street until one turned away, breaking their fellowship. A mother pushed away her crying young son outside the clay house, love abandoned. James prayed alone on a hillside, troubled by visions of division among the people. A rich man at the city gate refused to help a poor man holding an empty bowl. Roman soldiers arrested a young believer as his family wept in fear. A woman of faith was accused by her neighbor before the crowd, betrayed and condemned. Peter lifted his eyes to the sky, remembering the words of Jesus about love growing cold. A young girl held a broken clay jar and wept as passersby ignored her pain. Elders in the temple courtyard argued fiercely, scrolls cast aside in chaos. A believer prayed alone in the desert under the dark sky, yet a small light shone beside him. People turned their backs on a needy neighbor in the dusty street, showing hearts of stone. A false teacher stood on a platform, cheered by the greedy crowd as deception spread. A faithful woman knelt in prayer, while the hostile crowd glared behind her. Jesus Christ appeared in radiant white on the Mount of Olives, his light shining as the disciples looked in awe.